Okay guys, so hopefully today's painting stream is going to go a little bit more smoothly than last one. Last one was full of all kinds of problems. I think I'm going to do better this time. I have less penalties to my dice roll, so to speak, i.e. I am not airbrushing this time. We're just going to be putting on some finishing touches and some washes on this BMP here. Alright, so we did the airbrushing and some of the block colors last time. It worked out pretty good. It was a little tough to get through it, but once we got it the way we wanted it, it came out pretty well. I also wanted to issue a bit of a correction. This model was sent to me by community member Madman. Before I said Mad Dog, that was incorrect. This is Madman, is the gentleman who actually sent me this miniature. So thanks very much, Madman. Hopefully I got your name right this time. And this is a BMP-1. Former Soviet armored personnel carrier in 20mm, and today, as you can see, I've got the basic colors on there, the three-tone camouflage, and some basic colors, basically the dark gray on the tires and on the tracks, and now we're going to add some more color to it along with some wash. So today's going to be very chill and very brand new brush. Here we go. Single aught, I guess, is the size of the brush. If that makes any sense. The wash I use is Vallejo, although I do thin it out with some water because, holy crap, this Vallejo wash is a very good wash, but especially with the darker colors, you do have to thin it out with a fair amount of water. Not too much, because then you get a lot of haloing effect, but anyway, you guys know this stuff a lot more than I do. When it comes to model, I'm definitely a babe in the woods. So, as much as I would love to just throw this thing in a gigantic kind of a dip wash, that's not going to work. I just know from experience, so I am going to pin wash this thing. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and get my wash here on the table so it goes a little bit faster. And we're just going to start pin washing. So today's been very busy in the Riscany front. Full day at work. I do have a full-time 9-to-5 job. Work for a pretty sizable tech company. I'm not a very important person in the company, but sometimes the job does get pretty intense. So that was fun. During my lunch hour, played a full 2-hour game of Arab Israeli Wars with our friend and community member Piotr. You guys might know him as Yavasa. That's sometimes his community name. By the way, I should also mention that Piotr also does his own, has his own blog where he paints a lot of miniatures, and not just historical. In fact, he's on a bit of a Infinity kick at the moment. A lot of Infinity, a lot of War Machine. So, let's see what else is going on. Okay, that got me through my lunch hour. Then back to work. Then logged on to the Cogs radio show. Oh, they didn't really have the Cogs radio show, so it turned out to be me and Martin. He's on our chat right now as the Hobby Lodge. We kind of had the radio show going, although it was really just a couple of guys. It was me, it was Martin, and then we had one other gentleman join us. So it wasn't much of a radio show, but all that while still working. Then got off of lunch, found out that real life had gotten in the way, as it often does, and so I was going to wind up streaming tonight as well. So, yeah, basically ate lunch with one hand and dinner with the other hand while preparing for a last-minute stream. So, yeah, it's been busy. It's been that kind of a day, to put it mildly. Which makes today's task actually kind of perfect. I don't know how much of a difference is coming out on this camera. Let me go ahead and try to zoom in a little bit. Get to my focus here. I know it's out of focus now. Give me a second. Come on, autofocus. Do your damn job. What the hell? It's literally not focusing on... Wow, that low? Alright, yeah, so as you can hopefully see there, I'm trying to put a little bit of... Come on, focus. I'm trying to put a little bit of dark wash around the features on that engine deck. Alright, so get back to our magic number, which I believe is... Cool. Just for fun, I also have my 20mm T55, another 20mm T55, the 20mm T64 I was looking for last week and couldn't find, and then of course my 20mm T80 BU. So I've got a lot of Cold War Soviet, ex-Soviet, Russian, Ukrainian, God knows what else, pretty much Eastern European armor on the table here. And this isn't even all of it, actually. I know I'm usually kind of known for 15 mil. I am working with 20 mil. I've been working with 20 mil for my moderns for quite a while. Honestly, modern tank battles are almost, I don't want to say pointless, but they're really tough to do in miniature at all, unless you're working with platoon level pieces at like 6 mil or something. And that's where each piece is a platoon, not even an individual tank. So I went with moderns, or I should say when I started into moderns, I went more infantry focused. So I've got some vehicles, but they're not going to be like tank armies. Like I literally have one T80. And, you know, once in a while he'll show up on the table and blow something up, and then the Chechens will show up with some RPGs and sort that out. But yeah, moderns is mostly an infantry thing if you're with miniatures. Tanks is tough. If you're in any kind of a true scale, anything like that. Which is why most of my modern stuff is in 20 mil. Because, you know, you got to pick your battles. I tried to get a little bit more light on the table this time. I know last week we had a hell of a time with not the greatest light. We probably still don't have the best light. We have a little bit better than last time, but not that much. Pin washing obviously is a very mellow process. A little laborious. I actually kind of like it though. It kind of calms me down. It doesn't go fast though. So I apologize if today's stream is not the most exciting stream, but I don't have that many miniatures on my table. Don't really work with miniatures that much anymore. I mean, obviously I still do. Occasionally, but it's not my primary focus these days. Good old BMP, man. This is one of those vehicles where if you get into anything modern, anything post like 1960, So already I'm kind of using the term modern a little loosely. You should have one of these somewhere in your force. It's just a very, very common, very ubiquitous vehicle. It's literally been in use in combat, sustained full-time military operations on, I would say, every continent on Earth except Antarctica and possibly Australia. And yes, I'm including North America in that. Technically, countries like Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, these are technically North American countries, continent-wise. Central America region, North America continent. I'm kind of guessing on whether or not BMPs have been used in the near constant, unrest we see in places like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras. Especially back in the 80s. But hey, if they weren't used there, you know where they were used? They were used at NTC and 29 Palms for training. So there, now they have been used in every continent on that very flimsy technicality. Between the BMP, especially the BMP-1, there are, good God, I don't even know how many versions of the BMP there are now. 3 main ones. BMP-1, 2, and 3, although there are very many variants and upgrades in different countries. Once they buy their BMPs, they kind of do their own thing to it. They kind of kit bash them to fit their own, particular needs. So yeah, it's one of those vehicles that you'll never run out of use for. So hopefully you guys are starting to be able to tell the difference in how the details pick out between the back half of the vehicle and the front half. You can't really see very much on the front half, but the back half hopefully is starting to pop a little bit. Also, the contrast with the black outlines are starting to make the colors pop. Notice those colors are almost magically becoming more vibrant than they are in the front. That's not like a trick of the eye or whatever, it's just contrast of, that's what happens with colors when you slap them up against a dark outline like that. They tend to just become more vibrant. So here in the chat we have Jim, I bought another printing license, this time Age of Hannibal, 6mm to 10mm. Nice. So we're talking about the Punic Wars and things like that. Cool. Make sure I'm not missing anybody over here in Mr. YouTube. Mr. YouTube, never been to Europe. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Glad to be somewhere. Nice. Alrighty. So, yep, bouncing back and forth between a couple channels here. Cool. Yeah, that's a fun set of wars. Those pre-imperial, pre-Marius reforms. Oops. I'm going to turn the turret a little bit just to get it out of my way so I can do these panels here. Those pre-imperial, pre-Marius reforms, Roman army battles. First, second, third Punic Wars. Putting a little bit more water in my wash because it's starting to go down just a little too thick. Alrighty. Yeah, a lot of people who paint miniatures are like, or yeah, sometimes you hear them say, mean, I like painting infantry, but painting armored vehicles, especially those big, broad, flat panels, like the M1. My M1 Abrams was in 20mm, especially in light desert colors. I did U.S. Army M1A1 with some of the armor upgrades you saw in Iraq. Second Iraq, I should say. Absolute nightmare. I mean, I finally got it, but holy hell, man. She did not go quietly into that good night. That was a high maintenance girl right there, that Abrams. Those broad flat panels that are very difficult to wash correctly. I mean, pin washing is really your only hope. And I mean, at least this one I have a nice dark kind of a color scheme to go on, so the haloing won't be that bad. But on desert colors, man, oh, that thing is a mess. Or it can be a mess. You gotta be real careful. So I understand why sometimes people don't do modern armored vehicles, because they are tough to do well. World War II armored vehicles are sometimes a lot more fun to paint. They're a lot easier to paint, I can tell you that. The turrets are smaller. There aren't as many of these kind of broad, flat panels. You get nice riveting that you can kind of hang or wash on. It looks nice and chunky. Yeah, but modern vehicles, you don't have any of that. So it can get a little annoying. Like this line right here, holy crap. Can you imagine trying to do this in like a dip wash? It just wouldn't work. Your whole tank would just be wash. Unless you guys know any tricks. I'm sure you do. I know most of the people in this chat, and I know that they're all better painters than I am. Lots of elephants, says Walkabout Games. Yeah, it depends on where and when in the conflict those elephants come into play. I mean, Hannibal taking his elephants over the Alps is a very famous period of history. Famous in its failure. So there's the myth, then there's the counter myth, then there's the counter myth. Like, a lot of grognons is like, oh, like none of those elephants made it over the Alps, so if you put elephants in your Carthaginian army, you're not doing it right. Herp derp herp. It's like, hey professor, how about all the battles in the Punic Wars that took place in Africa? Like Zama, like the battle that actually was decisive and kind of ended those wars, or at least the Second Punic War. About oh god, I can't remember the name of the battle. It took place in Utica. Lots of elephants there, and that wasn't even in the Punic Wars. That was well into, I think, wars of the. I think that was the Second Triumvirate. The Civil War that immediately followed that. I don't know. I shouldn't probably talk that much about it. Mark Antony versus the remains of the Senate. Cato, mostly. Some of his allies. I don't think Brutus was there. I think Brutus had already kind of split off and was doing his own thing. Could be wrong about that. Those wars after Caesar's assassination, it's like trying to keep up with the Marvel extended universe. It's incredibly bewildering. Who was on whose side, when, who switched sides, how the armies were, and it's all Roman. It's all Roman versus Roman. But of course, even that's an oversimplification, because a Roman army, in almost any period you look at, Republic, late Republic, early Imperial, pre-Reform, post-Reform, late Imperial, there's a lot of allies, there's a lot of auxilia. That's where you see, the reason I was mentioning all that is that's where you wind up with that, that's where you wind up with all those elephants in Roman service. They were enemies of the Romans in against the Carthaginians, but later some war fighting took place in that same general area. Modern day, let's see, that would be Western Libya and Tunisia, pretty much where Carthage used to be. A lot of fighting took place later in later civil wars. Oops. Oh, that's because there's a little gas tank there, I think. I think that's a gas tank. Either gas, well, not gas, either gas or oil or who knows what. Windshield wiper fluid. This tiny little cap here. I know the BMP's engine's in front. I just don't know exactly what that little cap there is. I would say it's too stupid for it to be a gas tank, but this is a Soviet vehicle, so. I know one place the Soviets kept the fuel on this thing were in these tiny false doors. Well, they're real doors, but you see how the door bulges out there? Those are actually fuel tanks, auxiliary fuel tanks. So say what you will about the average Soviet rifleman. He goes into battle in an APC where the doors are literally the fuel tanks. It does take a certain amount of mortal fortitude. Yes, I'm going into combat in a rolling gas can. This can't possibly go wrong. It'll be fine. It's all fine. Alright, so I got the upper deck pretty much pin washed, at least on the first try. I'll go over it again and again as we progress. I don't want to spend too much of today's stream on it. Come on. It's drying a little spotty. Hopefully that'll smooth out a little bit as it dries. But again, I'm just trying to pick out some of those engine details a little bit. Engine deck, troop deck on the back. You see the driver's hatch there, right by my thumb. Of course, I still have to do the turret, and of course, all the running gear. So let's get started. Oops. Let's get started on that. Also, apparently something happened to a little bit of my wheel there. It got a little bit skinned up. I don't know what happened there. I'll have to retouch that up. Fortunately, that's an easy fix. As soon as I find the right kind of paint. So this is not wash, this is just regular paint. A little bit of black. And a little bit of that white as soon as I can find it. Oof. I don't think I want to use that white. That white's really old. So what's everybody else up to hobby-wise? So Walkabout Game says he's excited to go. He's excited to start doing some 10mm. I agree. 10mm is a great scale. 10s and 6s. I mean, if you're gonna do an army, which let's face it, if you're doing Carthaginians, you kind of, probably talking about the Punic Wars. Those were not small conflicts. So Walkabout Games is saying that, yeah, maybe one elephant made it across the Alps. Yeah, it was a tiny number, a tactically insignificant number. So sometimes you'll run across the occasional, would-be historian or, historian wannabe who will, criticize a table. Oh, why do you have, and he just quickly said, there are lots of conflicts, lots of battles in those wars that took place when the Romans counter-invaded back into the Carthaginian homeland there in northern Africa. And that's where you see a shit ton of elephants, because they didn't have to cross the Alps to get into the battle. The battle came to them. Oh, I know what happened here. I was applying some super glue to the under chassis of this thing to kind of reinforce it a little. The way the wheels are attached to this miniature is a little unusual. And sometimes when you put super glue on plastic, it gets very light. It starts to have like that weird white kind of a flash burn or whatever. I think a little bit of that was creeping around. No worries at all. Nothing a little paint can't fix. Ah, come back! Alright, cool. So, let's see, what else are we going to do here today? Tiny says because science teacher. I can't decide if the tiny figures are harder or the bigger ones. I can answer that really quickly, the bigger ones. Painting in 28mm was a nightmare for me. I mean, I eventually got it done. I think they came out pretty good, but I was not used to it, man. Holy mackerel. You gotta remember, the amount of detail that's in a model, the amount of things that you have to paint is, and again, there are people here in the chat, especially Walkabout Games, who does 3D printing a lot, probably in different scales. You can probably correct me on this if I'm wrong. The amount of detail that's in a miniature is almost a function of its surface area. Okay, so if you go from, say, 15mm to 28mm, that's a roughly ×2 linear scale up. But that just means that you're really getting at least 4 times the surface area. Probably more. 8 times the volume. And 4 times the surface area. I don't know if the volume would be what count, because it's not like you have to paint the inside of the miniature, but at least 4 times. And yeah, 28mm miniatures, man. I mean, it's easier to paint certain details, but there's a lot more to paint. Whereas you can get away with a lot less on a 15 or 10 or 6. I mean, the amount of scale that you have to, or I should say, the amount of detail that needs to be painted on a 6mm miniature versus a 28mm miniature is almost an order of magnitude. It's like a lot less. The trade-off being that, of course, you have to paint like 9,000 6mm miniatures for most games that require 6mm. 6mm is an army scale, and I would also kind of, especially what we've seen with Warlord lately and their epic sets for ACW, I would almost say that 6mm. I apologize, 10mm. I would almost say that 10mm is becoming the new 6mm as far as, oh, you want to build an army of guys? Okay, this is the scale you work with. So I totally get what Walkabout Games is saying. Back here on the doors, there's enough detail, speaking of detail, where I can start to, not so much dip wash, obviously, but more like more of a traditional wash, where you're not really pin washing, you're just kind of pooling it in the places where you want those shadows. Because there's so much knobby stuff going on back here. Hinges, these little ports and the fuel tank doors. Yes, I just said that. Local to Soviet armored vehicles. So if you guys like these kind of hobby streams, let us know. Because right now, I mean, it's just kind of me doing them, and I'm not very good at them. Also, because I don't have that many miniatures in progress at the moment, I don't really have, I have a very limited selection when it comes to, you know, things I can feature in a stream. But if it's something that you guys like, I can kind of reopen my little dining room table workshop here, or we can talk to some of the people up in Chicago. They have a much better studio than I do, and we can start getting some more miniature painting stuff going. Because I mean, what you're looking at here is just a guy with a relatively cheap webcam and a dining room table. I don't even have that great of lighting on here. This is not my primary field of hobby, so to speak. And I feel kind of bad, you know, running the same vehicle on here 2 weeks in a row, but I don't have anything else going on. I mean, the only other thing I could probably show are my 15mm Soviet infantry. And unless you want to watch me paint black boots on 75 of these figures for 2 hours, 75 times 2, 150 black boots, one after another, you know. That's why I went with the BMP. Alright, so we got the BMP turret pretty much pinwashed. I'm not sure what this barrel is made out of, the barrel of the gun, the 76mm main gun. I'm going to try to drill it out and put a little bit of a muzzle in there. Right now it's just flat, and it doesn't look that great. So I'm gonna but not if it's metal. If it's metal, you know, it's fine. I'll paint a black dot on there and it'll be okay. So give me a second to find a good knife, and I'll try to drill this sucker out, or I'll at least investigate the possibility. Let's get a brand new kind of a blade on here. Ooh, that's brand new. It's still got plastic on it. Alright, if I slash myself here on stream, guys, call 911. That is a brand new. Wow, that's still got oil on it. Alright, here we go. Let's see if this works. Pray for my soul. Alright, this might not work because that barrel might be metal. Let's see then. God, this is tough to do without the right glasses. But if I put on my hobby glasses, I won't be able to see the computer screen. Keeping my fingers well away from the tip of the blade. Oops, just because of that. Okay, it is drilling out fine. Very good. Let me just drill it out a little bit more. Oh, it's drilling out beautifully. Oh man, look at that. Alright, so hopefully you guys can see that difference. Probably not, I probably don't have enough light on it. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. Come on, machine. Really? There we go. Alright, yeah, you see that gun barrel there? I just managed to drill that out a little bit. That worked surprisingly well. Yay, something went right for a change. That is a really sharp knife. Holy mackerel. You look at it, you get cut. Alright, so while that top engine deck dries, top engine and troop deck dries, I'm going to put a little bit of wash here on these side running boards. After I put a little bit more water in my wash, because it keeps drying out. Excuse my hand just a minute. What I need is to get a nice kick-ass Hobby Lodge like the Hobby Lodge has. So I won't have so many of these problems. Now it's okay if, at least for me, others may disagree, but at least for me it's okay if the side running boards get a little overwashed, because these are going to get heavily chipped up anyway. They're going to get hit heavily with the dry brushing, and then also like a little bit of a manual chip kind of an effect. Because this is the part of the vehicle that kind of drives through forests and narrow city streets. The troops are always getting on and off the vehicle here, clambering on and off the vehicle. I should say the crew as well. And there's a lot of neat little details here in these little boxes that are built into the side of the vehicle. And of course, dirt, dust, everything else from the tracks gets thrown up by the tracks, I should say, and tends to collect in these areas. These little firing ports are going to be a pain in the ass. I don't know who ever thought that was a good idea. And it's not just the Russians, the Americans too. I don't know about the British. Who puts these rifle firing ports on the side of their APCs? I mean, I don't think troops ever use them. I mean, no, they're in the model, so I'll put them in there. These are tiny little, these little teardrops that you see here. These actually kind of flip open, and you're supposed to be able to fire your weapon through there at enemy targets as your vehicle, so you can fire from inside an armored vehicle as an infantryman. It sounds great in theory. It's the worst idea ever. Number one, you can't take cover. Everybody can see exactly where you are. You don't have that much protection. The armor on these vehicles is extremely thin. So you're much more vulnerable inside the vehicle than you are out. Anyone who's played Arab Israeli Wars will tell you that in a hot minute. Troops are desperate to get out of these things. At least out in the field. I mean, yeah, you're on foot and you have no armor or whatever, but at least you can like hide. And your fate is kind of in your hands. You can actually do stuff. Run around, take cover, get behind a tree, duck behind a wall. You're inside what's basically a microwave TV dinner with tracks. I mean, these things are death traps. The fuel tanks are in the doors, for crying out loud. And they expect you to actually calmly fire and hit targets while looking through the equivalent of a... I definitely overdid it on that part, man. While looking through the equivalent of a doorbell window. Yeah, forget about it. And the American ones are even worse. Literally. The American ones, you can't even use your rifle. You have to use a special version of the M16 that has different furniture and plastic and you know, mounting guards or whatever that you can kind of like screw into the side of the vehicle. It is the dumbest thing in the history of dumb things. I don't think they use it anymore. I'm going to try and walk back some of this overstep I did here. Let me see if this works. Yeah, I got away with it. There's just way too much wash on that part. A little bit of cleanup. Alright, that looks a lot better. Cool. Now, one part that's always kind of fun, they did take them out of the Bradley. Okay, thank God. Walkabout games, clearly you know what I'm talking about. You had like the XM216 or whatever the hell that stupid thing was. The special M16 that was made just to fire from inside of a Bradley. And we spent how much, you know, tax time? That put somebody's kids through college. Some defense contractors' kids went through college on that abortion. But hey, whatever. A little bit of white paint on my thumb, which I desperately want to get rid of because whenever I pick up the model, it's going to wind up on the... There we go. Alright, I kind of go crazy on the wash down here on the wheels and tracks. This is the part of the tank that always, obviously gets a lot of oil and grease on it. So, it's fine. It's also the reason why I painted my tires and my tracks with a very, very light gray instead of a black. So that there would be contrast and difference, which hopefully you guys can see here. Especially in the little details we have in the, I don't want to say hubcaps, but in the center of the wheels of this BMP. The tires also have this nice little rim, which that one came out really good. Sometimes the paint is picking up on it, sometimes not. A little too much. There we go. Again, guys, you guys all know a lot more about painting miniatures than I do, so anything I know about painting comes from, you know, old school, you know, canvas stuff. From, you know, what little I've done as a, you know, a traditional artist or whatever. Like, I know how to mix colors and stuff, but that's really about it. I know how to mix colors, and I have a relatively steady hand with a brush. When it comes time to this stuff, I'm pretty familiar with the vehicles themselves. That's really about it. Other than that, as far as any kind of real painting skill, much more of a babe in the woods kind of thing. I'm hoping that this dries in time because I want to put some like some dust and dirt and sand effects on the side. That's always kind of fun. Especially since BMPs in real life are pretty fast. You see them in all over the place, really, but especially in the Ukraine, where they've seen a lot of action recently. And they're haul ass, man. They don't mess around. But they do make a big mess. And so they get a lot of mud and sand and whatever, you know, all splashed up against the side of the vehicle. It's a fun effect to put on your miniature. However, your wash has to be dry before you think about doing that, though, because if you try to dry brush like a light sandy color over your wash while your wash is still a little wet, yeah, that's not a good thing. Things don't go well when you do that. It's drying pretty well everywhere else. The thing with pin washing, though, is that sometimes you have to go over it a couple times to really get that sharp, or at least I liked it. I like to get that really sharply defined, almost comic book kind of a paint scheme on my tracks, or on anywhere on my vehicle, really. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I fully understand, but I like it. I like to look at the model from 3 to 4 feet away on the miniature table and really be able to see like what's there. It's not the most strictly realistic style of painting, I fully admit, but I really like it. Try to get down that line between the side plates and the main hull that I overdid last time, and I had to kind of remove it. Yeah, it's just a buffer tube with no stock. Ew, horrible. Those stupid carbine versions or whatever of the M16. Let's see what's going on in our other chats here. Hey, Springtime, what's going on? Have you heard about Belarus and the hijacking of the airliner? Holy crap, no I have not, Springtime. I almost don't want to ask. It sounds pretty bad. Welcome to the chat in any event. Oh, damn it. Massive overstep. Hold on. Nice thing about Vallejo Wash, if you're fast enough, you can pretty much pick up any mistake you make. But you gotta be kind of